Our next speaker needs no introduction. I'm kidding. I've never been an MC and I've always wanted to do that. Sorry. Our next speaker, Rick Riordan, is the author of the award-winning New York Times #1 best-selling Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. Yes. And as if he had nothing better to do, in 2010, Rick launched 2 all-new series that both debuted at #1 on multiple bestseller lists, The Kane Chronicles and The Heroes of Olympus. There are more than 33 million, I just love that word, million, 33 million books currently in print in the United States across Rick's 3 best-selling series. Rick's books have been translated into 37 languages in 36 countries. The 4th book in the Heroes of Olympus series, The House of Hades, releases on October 8th. And Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Sea of Monsters, will be released in movie theaters nationwide August 7th. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rick Riordan.
Somebody asked me backstage if I got nervous before these things, and I said, look, I taught 8th grade. After that, nothing scares me. I want to start by thanking my panelists, my friends up here. I was talking backstage with Veronica, and I told her, we're in the middle of a huge move. My family is moving from San Antonio to Boston, like right now, this weekend. And we're a little worried about, the seasons and the winter. Veronica, who is from Chicago, assured me it could be worse, so it's all right. Mary, I especially appreciated your talking about the sweet letters you get and the gifts that you get. I write for middle grades. I don't get that. No one has ever sent me an apple, and if they did, I would not eat it. And Octavia, thank you for explaining your love of martial arts movies. I was wondering why you were doing the roundhouse kicks in the green room, and now I get it. 8 years. I was thinking back, the first time that I was at the Children's Author Breakfast was 2005, and I was just reflecting how much has changed since then. Back then, my 2 sons were reading Mary Pope Osborne, and now they're reading Veronica Roth. Back then, The Lightning Thief, my first Percy Jackson book, hadn't even been published yet. It was still in advanced reader form. But I had recently quit my day job as a middle school teacher so I could write full-time. I was scared out of my mind. In fact, I had just stored 5 file boxes full of old lesson plans, a whole bunch of tubes of classroom posters, and God knows how many colonial and Civil War costumes in my garage, because I was pretty sure I'd be going back to the teaching gig in a couple of years. And really, that would have been fine. I loved teaching. I was not anxious to get rid of that job. Percy Jackson started as a bedtime story for my older son, but it also really evolved from my years as a teacher. And looking back now, after 8 years, I think the most important lesson that I've learned is to see things from the reader's point of view. Kids are so good at challenging our assumptions. Every year I taught some kind of mythology when I was a classroom teacher, and it was always their favorite thing, their favorite unit in class, but I got better at it as I went along and I learned more about middle schoolers. I think everything I know about the middle grade sensibility, the impatience for extraneous detail, the quirky sense of humor, the need for engaging storytelling, all of that came from my classroom and went right into my books. And with The Lightning Thief, really what I was trying to do was craft a book that I could read aloud to my own students, even if I was reading it 5th period after lunch. And if you've been in a middle school, you know that's a pretty tough test, but I was trying to write a book that would survive in the Shark Tank. At its best, I think the writing is a lot like teaching. It should be a dialogue and not a lecture. I have to rely on my fans the same way that I used to rely on my students to give me the occasional reality check. And it's good to have some perceptual flexibility. You found that out this morning. This is a breakfast. Which does force you to stretch your definition of breakfast to include 10 people at a table fighting over a bagel. But that's good. That's good. Another example from my own career, one of the very first school presentations I ever did as an author was to the second graders at Cable Elementary School in San Antonio, my hometown, where I was volunteering as a reading tutor. Second graders, oh my God, they are fabulous at questioning adults' definitions of reality. They were the ones that first told me that the three-headed dog Cerberus that was on the original cover for The Lightning Thief was actually Fluffy from Harry Potter. I was really proud. It was my first event as an author. I had blown up the cover art to this 24 by 36 poster, and I brought it in to show the second graders, and I said, "This is what my book is going to look like." The second graders all went, "Oh." One boy said, "Is it really going to be that big?" And I said, no, I mean, they don't really make books that big. And every class person pointed to the easel in the corner where there was a copy, 24 by 36, of Richard Scarry's biggest book ever. So my definition of a book has been stretched. Readers stretch my definition of myself. I had no idea how deeply my own identity would be conflated with Percy Jackson's. I just had an online review a couple of days ago. A reader named Dorothy commented about the Mark of Athena. She said, "It's a fun read. Mr. Jackson has a great imagination." And young readers aren't the only ones who do this. One of my first phone interviews, a guy from the UK called, and he said, "Hello, may I speak with Percy Jackson, please?" I said, "I'm sorry, he's fictional at the moment. May I take a message?" And of course, young readers are always making me rethink my writing. When I first published The Lightning Thief, when I was about to send it off to the editors, I let some of my own students read the manuscript, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I have to tell you, I was more nervous giving it to them than sending it to the editors in New York, because middle schoolers are brutally honest. Fortunately, they liked it. They did have some great suggestions, though. One girl said that I had to change the title. The original title for The Lightning Thief was Son of the Sea God. She said, you can't call it that. It gives away too much. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. So I had to change it to The Lightning Thief. Another kid said, okay, so Percy has this sword that is a pen, and he uncaps it, and it turns into this sword. Well, what happens if he loses the pen? Which is something that happens in middle school frequently. So I had to rewrite it so that it automatically appears in Percy's pocket. And now my readers are asking, well, what happens if he's not wearing pockets? I haven't figured that one out yet, so if you have any ideas, let me know. My sons, I have two teenage boys now. They're 18 and 15. They're also constantly challenging my writing in the best possible way. My older son, Haley, he's 18 now. He's sort of aged out of my books, but he's still a fabulous editor, and he keeps me very honest. I think I've gone from being his third favorite author to his sixth favorite author. My younger son, Patrick, fabulous copy editor. About 3 manuscripts ago, I made a bet with him. He wanted to read it for typos. And I said, okay, yeah, sure. At this point, I had read the manuscript maybe 14 times. My editor had seen it. My copy editor had seen it. I figured he'd find 2 or 3 typos. He said, well, how about $10 a typo? I said, okay, sure. He found 40 mistakes. His college 529 fund, fully funded. Now, it's true, I don't always take reader suggestions. One young girl recently wrote me. She was very concerned for my well-being. She thought I was going to get in trouble with the big guy upstairs because I use the word God so often in my books. And she very helpfully suggested that I change all the mentions of God to gosh, which could cause problems with, say, Poseidon, gosh of the sea. Percy Jackson, you are a demigosh. Another boy had a very valid point. He said, well, if Percy is the son of Poseidon, why is his name Jackson and not Poseidonson? Good point. I do think that would take some of the mystery out of it when Chiron says, "We do not know who your father is, Percy Poseidon's son. But someday we hope to find out." I do listen to the fans, though, and a lot of what they've asked me about is, in fact, in the next book that's coming out, Book 4 of the Heroes of Olympus, The House of Hades. Now, I have to be clear, a fan recently said that she was really looking forward to that book, The Hose of Hades. That's a totally different book. I'm saving that one for my new adult debut. John Rocco, the cover artist who's done all the Percy books, all the Kane Chronicles, the Heroes of Olympus, fabulous, fabulous guy. He really knows how to pick out iconic images. He read the manuscript in advance and he said, basically this book is the Persebeth book that everybody has been asking for. And he's right. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the House of Hades, but really at its heart, it's about my two most well-known characters, Percy and Annabeth, and how they struggle to survive and support each other as they literally go through hell. And this morning, we're revealing the cover for the first time. And here it is. I think we have it somewhere. There it is. I am so looking forward to this book. I hope you guys enjoy it, but more than that, I hope the young readers enjoy it. C.S. Lewis is often quoted as saying, "A children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story in the slightest." And that's very true, but I would add a corollary. A children's story that can only be enjoyed by adults is also not a good children's story in the slightest. And speaking of that, of audience and subjective taste and seeing the world through somebody else's point of view, I'll just end with another comment from a reader online recently. It's really a very moving quote, and it chokes me up every time. This is Bailey, who read The Mark of Athena, and he writes, "This book is my favorite in the series, and I can't say anything is wrong with it. If you don't like the book, that is okay. Just lie down with your head in the door and let me slam it about 5,000 times." Which I really think shows how reading makes all of us better people. Thank you very much.
Seriously? Well, Rick, I am reimagining my definition of a character. I'm seeing a new goddess, Octavius. Goddess of bagels or something like that. And I am allowing you to use that in your next book. So there.